All right, everybody, Stocks by the Numbers, welcome back. And we have to do a quick update on AST SpaceMobile, ticker symbol ASTS. Yes, yes, yes. And this stock has been continuously climbing. And as we see today, continuously hitting new highs here. 13, 14, and continuously throwing your boy for a loop, but that's okay, it happens. Stock closed above 13 here, 1301, up over a point. 9.33% here on the day, taking a slight hit after hours. And in my opinion, I just wanted to look at some technicals, right? Because unfortunately, again, on the fundamental side, not beating it up, on the fundamental side, we heard about the contract extension with AT&T, no financials disclosed. Then we had the 100 mil investment come in from Verizon. And I still say the fact that both of those announcements happened like just within days of each other after these earnings, I don't know. I don't know. That it really kind of caught me off guard, and it just seemed out of time, in my opinion. But that's probably because I said it's not worth owning at 2, and now it's at 13, right? So probably a little saltiness in my game, but that's okay. So ASTS 1314, and what I wanted to point out was a couple of trend lines I'm looking at and a potential rising wedge, as you can see, that the stock may be in, which of course does mean that we can potentially break inside of the next couple of days. So first, longer term support trend line I'm looking at here, going from these lows here before we went into earnings, May 13th, May 14th, coming up, connecting to that bottom there on the 15th. And you can see that just cuts across there and goes all the way up. And in my opinion, that's basically our longer term main support trend line, right? Because we're going across the bottoms as the climb happened, and we've been up and above this level since then, right? So if we start to break and come down, and then we drop and close below this support trend line, that's where the chunking down can really start to take place, where we start to just drop back to key levels, and we give back like 50, 60, 80% of this big move. Because, again, I'm not trying to rain on your parade, but we've seen this happen time and time again with a lot of other names as well, even if they came out with solid fundamentals, right? Because if we look at a longer time frame here, look at this up and up and the length of these candles and the fact that we've gone straight up, right? Now, hypothetically, try to imagine what it's going to look like over the next 3-4 weeks. And I mention that because usually, more times than not, when you do have these big spike ups like this and these big rallies, we've seen the stock kind of immediately kind of mirror that move, right? Over the longer term on the flip side, and then come back down to like here. And then we'll be looking and we'll say, oh, wow, it went from 2 to 13, then it pulled all the way back to, 5. And it gave back most of those gains, right? It's still up technically from where it was, but it went on a massive run, and then it starts to go off on a massive sell-off and give back a lot of those gains, right? So again, I'm just throwing that out there because if the stock wants to pull back and it wants to like hit $4 or $5 and then bounce and start heading back up to 6, 7, that would be understandable in my opinion. But again, I'm not necessarily wishing it upon anyone, but I'm just letting you know what could potentially happen. And again, I know you own it, so you might be a little biased on it. But again, we've seen those big run-ups, and then we've seen it really sell off and give back a big chunk of those gains. We've seen that with a lot of stocks. So if it does happen, you can't be caught off guard, right? We'll put that on the record. But right here, it looks like, again, this is technically my personal longer-term support trend line here. And you can see, if we do continue to climb up here in the wedge, you're looking at about maybe 13.5. And if we ride out to the apex itself, we're looking at about Thursday afternoon next week. And if we start breaking at that point, right, looks like about maybe 12:30 would be your support level. So if it really breaks out of this wedge and starts to drop hard and all of a sudden it closes at like 1180 or something, this is why I'm saying we can potentially continue to see the big sell-off just like we saw the big run-up, and we might start chunking down to the high sixes here, the sevens, potentially retest this trend line here at like 5 before we kind of bottom out, calm down, and then maybe start to run again. So I'm just throwing that out there. But in my opinion, this is the level to watch. But it really has been on the up and up. And I thought it was actually going to kind of do the same thing that we saw here. This was about 4 weeks ago when we looked at the stock. And it looked like we were almost kind of in this rising wedge, but then the stock broke out even higher. And we can see over the longer term, going from that second leg up here on May 29th, we can see I drew out across the bottom there, connecting to the 2nd of July and cutting across, and you can see that's where a lot of bounces have taken place recently in the last day or two. And of course, connecting across the tops there, we're going from the top on June 17th, 2024, and just cutting across, connecting to the top there of July 8th. And now the stock kind of just slowly just ticking up higher here inside of this channel, right? So as you see, potentially about 13.5 as we approach this apex, and we have to see, does it break even higher and just continue going nonstop? Or do we actually break from this wedge and start to test some of these key levels on the way down, right? Even something like this, right? How we were in this channel and then we broke higher. This is still a key level. So even something like this, if we extend this out, so you can see how previous trend lines, whether they're resistance or support, are now future resistance and support levels, right? So as you see, hypothetically, if we go up here, 13.5, we break down, we have to hold 12.30. Let's say we bounce and then we break. Now we come down, we're looking at, yeah, like 11.20, right? And then if we break that, we're going to come down to the next level. Right? So this is why I like to keep, in my opinion, a lot of my trend lines on the screen. And sometimes I just kind of extend them out as a stock runs up or runs down, because it kind of shows me a little bit of a range of where the stock could go, what future key levels it might reject at or bounce off of, right? But again, everyone's different. But this is what the technicals are showing me here again, rising wedge with a couple of key levels here that we can see on a big breakdown. If you're seeing something different and you think bullish momentum is still here and the stock is going to go higher even out of this wedge, and this wedge isn't really the pattern, right? If someone disagrees with me, let everyone know down in the comments section. I'm always open for new input, criticisms, whatever. And if you think this is going to continue to break up and we might see like 14.5 or $15, then, you know, throw out your input in the comments section below. I always welcome it. But again, this is more of a technical breakout, right? This is a ride for traders. This is not necessarily an investment rally. Because again, technically, the only fundamental figure that we've gotten from this whole rally is 100 million. And market cap, 3.5 billion. And we recently looked at, oh, what the hell was that stock? QuantumScape, QS, right? Some people were like, yeah, you know what, might be an overreaction, let's see what happens. Other people are like, it's going to pop even higher, you know, long term, it's going to be huge. And totally understandable, right? Usually when we look at any company, we have people on both sides of the fence. But QS was up again today. We just looked at it. I said, in my opinion, we could pop higher and hit like that 8.5 level. I'm not exactly sure how high it went, but I saw it above 8 a little bit earlier. But essentially the same market cap, right? So that's what I mean. Think about it. QS just popped because supposedly they licensed out their technology, and now Volkswagen is going to be producing some of their batteries. So, you know, if that's good news and that could translate to tens and hundreds of millions of dollars, and you put a $3.5 billion price tag on that, well, ASTS, again, I just want to remind you, timeline got a little delayed, right? I think, actually, it's July now, and I think they said, what, around July, August? Those satellites were going to be delivered, right? So soon we'll get the satellites delivered, then they have to launch them, then they have to start signing deals to generate revenue, right? So the timeline is a little bit more delayed when compared to something like QS. But now both of these companies, incidentally, are worth like $3.5 billion in change. And in my opinion, I might view something like QS actually with the new licensing news as more valuable than ASTS in this current situation. And of course, to remind everyone about SoundHound, which had a very nice day today. Again, SoundHound is actually signing deals. They're in multiple different sectors, right? Fast food, automobiles now, potentially healthcare, I'm predicting. And they're actually generating tens of millions of dollars in revenue. So that's what I mean. If you think stocks like QS and ASTS are worth 3.5, 4 billion, then SoundHound should be worth 5, 6, 7 billion easy, right? So that's what I mean. That's just why I like to look at stocks the way I do. And also, I think for you guys, it's very advantageous, even if you just hear out my viewpoint, even if you don't accept it, because again, I don't have positions really in any of these companies that you guys asked me to look at. So, very unbiased, and I'm just trying to, be realistic here. But anyway, enough talking about myself. Market cap 3.5 billion now, and again, as you see, if we run up here about 13.5, and that seems to be a key level, because if we switch over here to stock charts, we can see I pulled up the pivot points here. First of all, look at the RSI, right? RSI topped out multiple points above 70, was even holding above this 70 benchmark for looks like about 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks straight on this run up before we just finally paused a little bit and then just continued to climb up. But we can see RSI sitting here at 71. So this is why we can potentially just kind of stay tight in this range and not see much movement, because our RSI is so high, in my opinion. But you can see next resistance level, 1352. Which again, as you see, if we go to the apex, you can see, look, 1350, 1353, right? And then we could potentially break down from the wedge. So, I mean, we did really go on a rally. We did really go on a rally with this stock. So that's why I just want to say again, if you look at previous moves of stocks in the past, excuse me, of stocks in the past, when you have these big, just straight spike ups, you start to see the big drops back down, and it gives back a lot of that rally. So I just want to give you a heads up. I mean, look at that MACD. Basically off the chart here. Look at the RSI. 85.5. Still growing here. Still climbing for, what, 2 months straight? So that's why it looks like, according to the technicals again, even though the RSI may have been topped out on the daily and the weekly time frame, it does look like we can potentially continue to stay up in this wedge for at least half, the better half of next week maybe. And we could see about 13.5. We can hit the apex of the wedge, the top of this wedge trend line. We could potentially reject at that pivot point, 1352, and then we can start to potentially drop back down. I think realistically, honestly, a break out of this wedge and dropping below some of these levels would be very realistic. And I'd say at least 7. At least 7, realistically, the stock should come down. I mean, honestly, in my opinion, I'd break it down and bring it to 5. And even though you might get upset with me saying that, you have to remember the stock was just at 2. So you'd still be up 150% from where we were, right? So stock's still up big. And the only reason why I feel like it should come back down and not really maintain this value again is because the timeline got delayed and technically the business isn't there yet. So if you pull up the articles, yeah, they're going to say, yeah, we're going to launch satellites and everyone all over the country, is going to have good connectivity and it's going to be great and, everyone's going to sign up. Okay, fine. When it happens, we can start to look at, okay, now, a year from now, 18 months from now, this is a $13 stock. This is going to be a $17 stock, right? Then we'll start to look at the actual valuation and look at some potential clientele that could possibly sign on with ASTS, and we can speculate, okay, you know what, 2 years from now, this is going to be like a $9 billion company, right? Which obviously would translate to like a $30 stock or something like that, right? So then our price targets, then our conviction is going to trade on the overall, is going to change, excuse me, not trade. Our overall analysis of the company is going to change based on that actual business coming in. Because right now it's just hype, right? People missed out. People still jumping in here at 10, but now they're up another 30%, just riding the wave. So this is why, again, in my opinion, unfortunately, something like this, all good things do come to an end. And when you have these big run-ups, you do tend to have a lot of big pullbacks. And again, it might not be as drastic as 5, but I think 7 is realistic. And I think you guys would be able to kind of understand that and meet me halfway on that mark. And again, with the wedges lining up, I think a pullback to 7. And again, not only is it realistic, you have to remember as well, it's healthy, right? It's healthy for a stock to do this because we just looked at the RSIs, right? RSI's completely topped out. And look at this longer term. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me turn that off. But again, look at the RSI on this time frame, the way we're just straight up climbing, right? It has to stop eventually. It just has to. And I know I was looking for about 7. Now we have a 200-day moving average established here. You can see over about the last year or so, 200-day 770, right? We have a key support level here, 787. So that's what I mean. Even if we don't exactly drop to 7, I think we have to start breaking down and retesting some of these levels so that our RSIs could come back down to earth, and then we can have that next bounce and potentially just kind of continue on that momentous wave. But again, that's just my opinion. I know you guys are hyped about this one. And again, the number one priority is to make money, is to make profits. We all know this. And I am technically much more right than I'm wrong. But you know what? A situation like this, I know you guys were pumped about it. I know a lot of you were holding from like $4 a share. A lot of you went in even heavier as they beat it up down here into the 2s and whatnot. And now the stock, goes on a 600% run. It's sitting here in the low teens now. So you know what? Because obviously so many of you were involved and you were just hoping and waiting for this day, and now it finally happened. I mean, I couldn't be happier for everybody, honestly. I'd rather be wrong in a situation like this with the bulk of you now seeing big returns, as opposed to looking at something else with high conviction that looks like a solid investment, and then the company just completely drops the ball, shits the bed, starts dropping in revenue, missing on earnings, and it turns out to be, a waste of time, and everyone takes a big loss. And see, in my mind, those hurt the most. Something like this, people getting overhyped, taking it from 2.5 to 13, it happens, right? It happens. But not much news. Not much news recently, and I believe they added maybe 1 or 2 members to the board. Yeah, here they talk about other satellite stocks and what ASTS potentially bringing to the table. I know earnings soon. Yeah, earnings in about a month, about 4 weeks, as you see, estimated for about mid-August. And of course, supposed to have revenue come in, but we have no revenue, right? Even back here. That's why, again, I felt that they kind of sugarcoated this earnings report. It's like, yeah, I know our timeline was delayed. And also, they're dealing with class action lawsuits now and whatnot, but oh yeah, by the way, AT&T is extending the contract. Oh, now Verizon's investing 100 mil, right? All of a sudden, after this quarter, now all these catalysts, all this news starts to hit all at the same time. So I don't know. That's why I personally was just a little hesitant with the whole situation. But again, you guys, I know the bulk of you are pumped about it, so very, very happy for you guys. But Chief Legal Officer, Chief Accounting Officer, Chief Strategy Officer. And that's pretty much from the last time we looked at it. So you got a couple of board members, and everyone's kind of waiting for these earnings because, again, with the company still in the up and coming phase, you also want to keep an eye on the cash burn, and you want to keep an eye on that EPS loss, right? So now if the stock stays flat, let's just say, and we go into earnings, let's say we hold this trend line here, we drop down to like 12, but then we bounce. If they come out and they post a loss of like 25 cents a share, the stock's going to get smacked up, in my opinion. It should, anyway, right? On the flip side, if they post like a loss of 20 cents, and again, with the revenue coming in light and completely missing, who knows? For all we know, that, you know, they might report earnings again and make another announcement about someone else who entered into an agreement with them or is looking to, you know, sign a contract in August when they launch the set, right? Who knows? Who knows what they're going to say? But again, basically right now, this is a technical play, and that's why I wanted to look at a lot of technical indicators like our MACDs, our RSIs, which kind of look topped out, and some potential wedges and trend lines that, in my opinion, you should keep an eye on. But that's pretty much it. So I'm going to end it there. But I'm glad this one kept going. 1314, new 52-week highs today for ASTS. Congratulations to all shareholders, and I'll end it there. So once again, this is Stocks by the Numbers. I want to thank you guys for stopping by. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, drop it down in the comments section, right? I'm usually pretty quick to reply. Thumbs up algorithm helps me get more eyes on the channel. And of course, subscribe to the channel. That is our handshake agreement. That is how you help me help you. But more importantly, moving forward, like I always say, I understand that markets are rocky, they're volatile, they are very uncertain. So I do want to wish all of you success. I hope everyone makes a couple of dollars. Thanks for your time. Have a good day.